All right, welcome. Check this out. Right in the center of the screen, a clean modern toggle switch on a dark minimal background. Nothing distracting, just pure focus. The toggle is tall and smooth with soft, rounded edges. It already feels premium. Inside, there's a circular knob, and you can tell it's meant to move. Now watch this. When I click it, the circle slides from bottom to top, super smooth, no snapping, no rough motion, just clean animation. At the same time, the background color changes from gray to a fresh green, and the timing feels right. Not instant, but intentional. Next to it, big bold letters, stacked vertically, strong, modern, professional. Everything is perfectly centered, both vertically and horizontally. This feels like a real UI component, something you'd see in an actual product. And the best part, no JavaScript. This is pure HTML and CSS. Simple, clean, powerful. In this video, I'll show you how to build this, step by step, from scratch. So if you like clean UI animations and modern CSS tricks, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's start building. Let us start at the top of the HTML and walk through it together. We begin with the body element. This is the main visible area of the web page. Everything the user sees on the screen lives inside this body. Inside the body, we have a div with a class called container. This container is used to hold all of the elements that make up our toggle component. Think of it as a wrapper that groups everything together so we can position and style it as one unit. Next, inside the container, we have an input element. This input is of type checkbox. It also has an ID and a name set to check. You will notice that it is hidden. This checkbox is not meant to be clicked directly by the user. Instead, it acts as the logic behind our toggle. When this checkbox is checked or unchecked, other elements will respond to that change. Right after the input, we have a label element. This label is linked to the checkbox using the for attribute, which matches the ID of the input. Because of this connection, clicking the label will toggle the checkbox on and off. This is a common technique used to create custom toggles and switches. Inside the label, there is another div with a class called toggle score circle. This div represents the circular knob of the toggle switch. Visually, this is the part that slides up and down when the toggle changes state. That is the first portion of the HTML structure. Now we continue moving down through the HTML inside the container. After the label element, we have another div with a class called toggle text. This element is responsible for the text that appears next to the toggle switch. It is separate from the toggle itself, so we can control its layout independently. Inside the toggle text div, we have two span elements. The first span contains the letter N. This can be used to represent one state of the toggle, such as off or night mode, depending on the context of the project. Right below that, we have a second span element containing the letter F. This represents the alternate state of the toggle, such as on or full mode. Because these are spans, they stay inline by default, but later we will use CSS to stack them vertically. After these span elements, the toggle text div is complete. At this point, all of the elements that make up our toggle interface are contained within the main container. That brings us to the end of the HTML structure for this component. All right, everybody. Now that the HTML is done, we move into the CSS and start from the very top. We begin by selecting the body element. The height is set to 100 VH, which means the body will take up the full height of the viewport. Next, display is set to flex. This allows us to use Flexbox to easily center our content. The margin is set to 0, which removes the default spacing browsers apply around the page. The background color is set to a very dark gray value using a hex color of 0E.0E-0E. This gives us a dark backdrop for the toggle. The font family is set to Inter, which controls the typeface used for all text inside the body. Next, we move on to the container class. The margin is set to Auto. Combined with Flexbox on the body, this centers the container both vertically and horizontally. The text color is set to a gray tone using the hex value 4D, 4D, 4D. The font weight is set to 900, making the text very bold. The font size is set to 6 rem, which makes the letters large and easy to see. Finally, for this section, display is set to flex on the container. This places its child elements next to each other in a row by default, setting us up for the layout of the toggle and its text. Next, we move down to the styles for the toggle class. The width of the toggle is set to 60 pixels, and the height is set to 155 pixels. This defines the overall size of the toggle switch. The background color is set to a light gray using the hex value CCCCC. The border radius is set to 1.7 rem, which rounds the corners and gives the toggle a pill shape. Padding is applied using 0.25 rem on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. This creates space inside the toggle so the circle does not touch the edges. The cursor is set to pointer, which changes the mouse cursor when hovering over the toggle, signaling that it is clickable. Display is set to flex, and justify content is set to center. This centers the circle horizontally inside the toggle. The transition property is applied to background color with a duration of 300 milliseconds and a delay of 300 milliseconds. This creates a smooth color change effect when the toggle state changes. Now we move on to the toggle circle class. The width and height are both set to 50 pixels, making the circle perfectly round. The background color is set to a very light gray using the hex value F2, F2, F2. The border radius is set to 50%, which turns the square into a circle. The margin top is set using a calc function. It calculates the distance by taking 155 pixels, subtracting 0.25 rem multiplied by 2, and subtracting 50 pixels. This places the circle at the bottom of the toggle by default. The transition property is set to margin with a duration of 500 milliseconds and an ease in-out timing function. This controls how smoothly the circle moves when the toggle is activated. Now we continue with the remaining CSS rules. Next, we target the toggle text class. The display property is set to flex. This allows us to control the layout of the text using flexbox. The flex direction is set to column, which stacks the span elements vertically instead of side by side. The line height is set to 0.8. This brings the letters closer together vertically, giving them a compact appearance. After that, we move on to a selector that targets the checkbox when it is checked and affects elements next to it. The selector starts with the check ID in a checked state. When the checkbox is checked, we select the toggle that comes immediately after it, and then the toggle circle inside that toggle. For this state, the margin top is set to 0. This moves the circle from the bottom of the toggle to the top, creating the sliding effect when the toggle is turned on. Next, we have another checked state selector. Again, it starts with the check ID when it is checked, followed by the toggle element that comes right after it. In this case, the background color of the toggle is changed to a green shade using the hex value 41-6-3C. With that, all of the CSS properties and values have been applied, and the toggle now visually responds to the checkbox state. Now we can see it works nice and without any problem. That's the end of this tutorial video. I want to ask you for liking this video if you liked and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss our new videos. See you in the next cool project. Have fun.